How do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if I die?
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.
I don't know if you know this, but everyone dies. It's important to remind yourself of that. That you face God, the judge, and he's going to list everything you did wrong in your life. It's going to be a long sentencing hearing for me. Well, you get justice, which is hell, because that's what we deserve. Mercy, which is less of that, which I'll allow the theologians figure out what that is. Or grace. What is grace? Grace is something so unique, so different, so profound. Which is as soon as the sentencing's about to be ushered in, someone comes in and says, no, I will serve that prison sentence for him. I will go into the prison cell for him or her so that they can live forever. That's grace. You didn't earn it. You didn't check boxes for it. You didn't go park cars for a ministry and that gets you extra points to go to heaven. None of that's true. It's that it's equally accepted for all people that allow Jesus Christ to be your Savior, the Savior of the world, to be born new and to be completely and totally renewed. That's a gift that we must try to give all people in the world.
I mean, I've had an unbelievably blessed life. Been doing this now. It'll be 12 years on June 5th.
Such a young man to do it.
So young.
Yeah, so praise God. I mean, I've been all across the world. I've met with world leaders. I've flown in Air Force One, got to know a president. I have an amazing family, the podcast, Turning Point USA, all that stuff. And so you experience that and you're like, what actually matters? What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth. And you could decide to lie all the time, then you become a tortured individual. And you know those people, you just turn on television. They're constantly lying and they just become like disfigured either emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Because when you lie, I believe you're actually committing suicide of the soul. I really believe that.
Are you a Christian by any chance?
Very, very much so.
Like, why is that exactly?
Jesus saved my life. I'm a sinner, gave my life to Christ, most important decision I ever made.
So you believe the Bible is real?
Yes, I believe the Bible is true and real. Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I could give you the technical answer. There's never been an archaeological discovery that has contradicted the truth of the Bible. And then, of course, the wisdom. There is not a truth of the Bible that if you apply to your life does not improve dramatically. And then finally, we have the most accurate and transparent, historically robust account that one can have of the most important figure ever to live in the history of the world, Jesus of Nazareth. And the resurrection is the pinpoint of my belief that Jesus did rise from the grave so that we may live.
And for those of you that have not given your life to Christ, I could tell you it is the most freeing, liberating thing that a human being can possibly do. The most important thing that you can do, which is to be born new into the kingdom of God.
How do you want
Welcome to the Gio and Joey Show. Joey, I know this has hit you hard. Where were you when you found out the news?
In between classes, schools, scrolling through social media, scrolling through X.
Mm-hmm. And for me, for me, I was at home and I was at my dinner table, actually, just talking, scrolling, and I saw that. And the first image I saw was from real far away. So I assumed he got shot in the chest and just fell over. And then a friend of mine sent me an up close. And barring a miracle, my wife being a doctor, we both knew there's no way he survives that based on a miracle. And it brought back a lot of emotion because, as you know, the next day is 9/11 and I'm from New York. You know, I know people who were affected directly by 9/11. And then on Saturday, I saw this helpless, young girl murdered in cold blood. And between the three events, I look at the young girl and I have three little girls that, even though I'm Hispanic and dark skinned, they're whiter than their mother. Their mother's Caucasian, know what I mean? I could be one of my girls. And so between all of that, it makes you realize what's precious in life. How'd you process it as you began to see the reality of the event?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely rough. So one of the things that it kind of went back in my mind is like, I was like 15 when I started following Charlie Kirk. One of the things that I, liked about him, right? So he kind of came to prominence when he was 18 years old. I was 15 at that time, right? He's only 3 years older than I am. And I liked, there's this guy who's, not that much older than me, who's, speaking out and doing a lot of good things. In recent years, obviously I would still see the clips, but I didn't follow him as much because, we have some differences, right? He's, I'm not a big fan of the president. He's probably the number one booster of the president, probably the reason why the president won the election. I mean, he's done excellent political, he's probably the best
activism, yeah,
organizer the right has, I would dare say, ever have. I mean, just the way he shifted the youth vote by like 40 points, I think I saw in some polls. I mean, he's incredibly effective. And why I said there, there's some things I disagree with him on. I would say, maybe he was more populist than I am. We're talking, when we come down to like values, right? Life, faith, the trans issue, right? These LGBTQ issues, like 80% of issues, at least, 80 to 90% of issues we agreed on. And one of the things that I was thinking was like, that 10%, those are the things that if Charlie Kirk ever came to a university in Michigan, I would have loved the opportunity to go and have a conversation with him about it, because that's what he did, right? And I agree with that. I think his legacy, like he wanted it to be, rightly should be his passion for Christ. But like in the political realm, I think the greatest thing about Charlie's legacy is that he did politics, regardless of what you think about his views. He did it the way it's supposed to be done. Right? If we say, everyone's always talking about our democracy, well, what is that ultimately? It's, you have conversations with people you disagree with, and you each try to change each other's mind, and that's what you do. And he did it better than most. And I think if we're looking at lessons to take from his life, accept the gospel and engage in conversation, right? Because, when you think of, obviously, I don't agree that the left did this. Now, I do agree we have a problem with rhetorical temperature raising, but the shooter, the alleged shooter, I'll say that till the trial's over, he's the one who killed him, the person who pulled the trigger. I just lost my train of thought where I was going.
Well, let me jump in there here. Like you, I didn't follow Charlie. I got a job, I got a family, I got a church, all these things, right? But I would see clips on YouTube, and I never, as I mentioned to you in the green room, I've never listened to any of his podcasts ever. Now, however, that doesn't mean I have listened to full episodes of his campus stuff, the back and forth on the campus. Like you, I'm not big into the politics aspect of his ministry. I try to minimize my political involvement in that sense. I do vote. I do have political views. But when it came to the social issues, the uplifting of scriptures, of trying to get to the heart of why, there is lack of family values spreading, transgenderism, homosexuality, abortion. That stuff, a lot of it resonates with me. And yet I've seen many hours, especially since his assassination. And what saddens me is many of people I know claim him to be racist. And I haven't seen that. Does he talk on things that may make people uncomfortable? Yes, he does. But I'm Hispanic, for example, and I do not support open borders. I do not support illegal immigration. Does that make me hate my own people? The answer is no. You know, I have family that immigrated here. I had an uncle who had to wait so long that when he applied, he only had 2 kids. By the time he got here, he had 7 kids. Know what I mean? And so what do you say to my uncle, right? When people are jumping the line, per se. So I want to look into several of his clips and we'll discuss them. But if you got your thought again, I'll let you finish it.
Yeah. So my social media, particularly my Facebook, that's where more of my personal connections are, people from my real life, more so. And even my non-political friends, I mean, everyone was talking about this. Now, I will say this, for the sake of fighting the algorithm's bias, most of the people, left, right, and center, were appalled by the murder. Right. And I could take screenshots of all those posts and I could post them on X and I would get 5 likes. Right. I'd get like no retweets. But there were people in my real life, and this is the disturbing part. I do think it's legitimately disturbing. People I know who were either indifferent or like, he kind of,
They implied he deserved it.
Yeah. And I saw that. Now, and I could take picture of those. That it was a minority in my feed. But I could take pictures of those and post them on X. And of course, those would blow up. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to contribute to that. But I do think there's a real conversation to be had about there is a large minority of people on the left side of a plurality of people on the left side of the political aisle, particularly among younger people, that see violence as sometimes a good response to speech. And I think that, in a democratic republic, that's if that idea takes hold, that's death to free society.
Yeah. I want to start with a couple of videos from, addressing. Now, look, everybody has opinions and everybody is not going to agree on everything. But what I don't like is, and from whoever, so I'm not even going to mention ideologies, but what I don't like is when people you disagree with then say that you are, for example, let me go back to this. Because I don't think Charlie Kirk's a racist, and they do, they assume now I'm a racist. Like, go figure. Like, how do you make that connection, right? So here's the first video I want to share.
Could I say one more thing, too?
Yeah.
One of the things that I see most common is people who obviously have never actually listened to the arguments that Charlie is making or is in the middle of when he says some of the things that, taken out of context, look really
sound bad.
So,
yeah.
I'll just say one of them, where that's one of the more prominent ones. He said on his show, I believe it was on a show, he said, and this is the quote that goes around, if I get on an airplane and there's a black pilot, I'm going to really hope that he's qualified. And people take that clip, that little clip that was part of a broader conversation, and they plaster, see, he doesn't think black pilots are. Now, you can have issues with the way he phrased that or whatever, but if you're going to be intellectually honest, you have to admit that he's saying it in the context of the conversation about DEI policies, right? So, have whatever opinion on DEI, disagree with Charlie, but don't misrepresent his argument and saying he's saying in a vacuum that black people are intellectually inferior or that they can't compete sans DEI. That's not what he's saying. His position is the opposite. We should get rid of DEI and have the best candidates of all races. I'm actually going
to play a longer clip of that later on here in the episode, where he was in the Megyn Kelly show, and I want to play that clip later on because a friend of mine who I love shared it with me, and he found offense to the clip. But it's funny, two people listening to it, I listened to it, and I didn't find offense to the clip. And so we'll discuss it here. But first, let me jump into this clip here.
Exactly now, as of this video. I had not spoken to him. Charlie Kirk sent me a direct message, and I'm going to show you what it said. This is almost 6 years ago exactly now, as of this video. I had not spoken to him in person or on social media. He started the conversation. You know what he said? 3 words. You are terrific. Now, bear in mind, this is back before I was blessed with the followership I have now. I had fewer than 10,000 followers on Instagram, very small Facebook presence, wasn't even on TikTok at the time. But the fact of the matter is, this young man, this leader of Turning Point USA, reached out to me and saw something I had done. And he felt so moved that he reached out to me himself to encourage me. And then he went a step further. He invited me to the BLS, which is the Black Leadership Summit Turning Point USA was putting on in Washington, D.C. I told him, transparently, I was in between jobs and didn't have the money to fund my trip. He told me that they had scholarships available and to email him directly and he'd be able to take care of it. I did, and that's the story of how I got to be a part of the Young Black Leadership Summit, which was instrumental in springboarding me to where I am today. Now, I share that story because he didn't have to do that. And if he was a racist person, why would he do that? I'm so tired of people being besmirched by the tired liberal lie that anyone they don't like has to be some sort of racist. And I'm not immune to this. They call me racist myself. Of course, it's ridiculous on its face, but this is the nonsensical nature of your average leftist. They really want you to believe deep down Charlie Kirk hated all black people. He saw the best in everyone. He saw in me something I didn't even quite see in myself at the time, and he chose to encourage me. That is why I will literally and metaphorically pick up that mic and continue the work that he started, because I myself and many others are tired of being slandered and maligned by individuals who have nothing to sell us but fear, panic, and lies 24/7. I had to share that story with you. I thought about keeping that to myself, but the more I see him being typecast as some sort of evil person, the more I cannot be silent, and I hope that you will not be silent as well. It is time for action like never before. It is time for voices to rise like never before, and I hope you will join me in that effort. So that is the real Charlie Kirk, the one they don't want you to know, but the one I will continue to remember and honor with my actions into the future. So those are my thoughts. Hopefully you share, and hopefully you get busy as well, because we all have microphones to pick up, and we are all Charlie Kirk.
Had you seen that video before?
Yeah, you had shared it with me.
Okay.
I saw it briefly. Yeah, that's one thing. You know, he had the whole Blexit movement that happened with Turning Point, right? They have many black leaders in Turning Point. You know, Thomas. It's one of those things, right? Where.
But I like this video because it's personal, meaning like it wasn't from afar. He didn't meet Charlie Kirk in some campus thing and they just said hello. It was actually personal. He texted him. He actually paid for him to go to that Black Leadership Summit, and they were friends. And obviously, you know, it rings to that. And I want to show another one, but go ahead, because I'm going to come. The next one we're going to see is actually not only is the young man black, but they say that Charlie Kirk was homophobic. Well, the next video we're going to see, the young man is black and gay, and he actually was inspired by Charlie Kirk. But go ahead before we show that one.
Yeah, and one of the things the left will say, right? I can already hear them in response to this. They're like, well, having a black friend or having black friends doesn't mean you're not white supremacist. And I just want to say that argument is ridiculous. Yeah. Right? Like actual white supremacists, people who don't like black people and think they're inferior and they're poisoning our skin or whatever, people who actually have they don't have black friends, right? Like that actually,
and they don't pay for them to go to leadership summits.
Yeah, and the thing I would say is like, sure, you can make an argument, right, that if there's systemic injustices, not being a white supremacist isn't enough. That's what some people would say. Like, okay, that's an argument. But the idea that someone is a white supremacist and they have like multiple close friendships with people of other races, that actually is a good argument against that. Because again, people will scoff at that, but I reject that idea.
And one of his closest friends, even though we don't agree with her a lot, I found out was Candace Owens. You know what I mean? And so,
I don't agree with Candace on much at all these days.
Yeah, exactly.
When she was when she was getting started out, when she was doing a lot of stuff with Charlie, Dennis Prager, she was much more grounded. She was basically just kind of, now I will say, right, like I think some of the seeds of some of the other, because like she literally came from the left with like a doxing. That's another story. Let me go down.
Yeah.
But the fact is, like, and this is one thing that I wanted to point out to people, right? People who look at the political spectrum and they just see right and left, that's a very foolish way to see things. What you don't understand about Charlie Kirk is even the things where I would disagree with him on, like that 10% or whatever. One thing that I recognized is there are people who, and some of them who, even when he was alive, like ragged on him and hated him, people like Nick Fuentes, right? There is a element of the right that, regardless of any disagreements I may have had with TPC or Charlie kept at bay, right? Nick Fuentes's and like the Groypers, right? These people that are actually, white supremacists, anti-Semitic, they would go to say rallies and they'd protest outside them because they weren't included on the panels. And what people don't understand is like Charlie Kirk was shielding, right, certain actually malignant people from being more prominent in the conservative movement. And yeah, I could go on longer, but I just think people should.
Let me show this one now.
Fortunately, some gun deaths every single year.
The purpose of this video is to serve as a tool to combat all the lies and misinformation that is commonly being spread right now about Charlie Kirk. And it's ironic because someone like Charlie Kirk is oftentimes called racist and homophobic, yet he's one of the main reasons this YouTube channel that you're watching right now even exists in the first place. He knew the young gay black Amir in 2018 and strongly advocated him to be more vocal online and spread his thoughts and to always seek the truth. Not even one day after the event, it was one day, the night of the first event I ever gone to in 2018 where I met Charlie Kirk for the first time, that I started being vocal online. And here we are today. And to this day, I still have one of the hats he even gave me. So I feel like this video is necessary because that's all Charlie ever did and pushed me to do and push everyone to do is to seek out the truth. So I want to put the truth in his words in a very articulate manner. You can go through this video chapter by chapter and it hits a lot of different marks and, topics and things that are currently being said about Charlie Kirk. And me and Charlie, we've had our disagreements and that's all they ever were. We're just disagreements because you're allowed to disagree with somebody. You're allowed not to agree 100% with somebody that you're talking to or you're an associate with. And if someone sent you this video and you're new to me, you have no idea who I am, you have no idea, or you just only heard the things about Charlie Kirk, I really do hope that throughout this video, you are listening to understand rather than listening to respond. At least for this video, just listening to understand why so many people loved Charlie Kirk. They say he's racist, but why are so many black people upset that Charlie Kirk has passed? They say he's homophobic, but why are so many gay people upset that Charlie Kirk passed? They say he's misogynistic. Well, why are so many women sad that Charlie Kirk has passed? They say he's transphobic. Why are there even trans people sad that Charlie Kirk has passed? They say he's a white nationalist. Well, why are so many black, Hispanics, Asians, the list goes on, anyone that's not white, very upset that Charlie Kirk has passed? If any of those terms were real about Charlie Kirk, then why on earth do all the same people that were commonly being told he hates, loves, and supports him? Just stop for 1 second, just 1 second. Stop listening to mainstream media. Stop listening to your friend groups. Stop listening to your echo chambers in social media, which even I myself in, and I try my best to, get away from echo chambers. Just stop being told how to think. And yeah, you're watching this video and I'm helping debunk the lies, but it's with his words and with full context of which most people are not getting. Like that's the one thing I learned from Charlie the most back in 2017, 2018, when I was really on my worldview and my thoughts were being challenged. Watching his content, even getting the chance to meet him was just, seeking the truth for myself. I listened to my friends, I listened to my favorite influencers and creators, but I always defaulted to my own research and deep research, really understanding what they were saying and why. And it's hard. It destructs your worldview. It's challenging. It is, but it's needed. We have to stop and think for ourselves. Like truly, again, I can't stress this enough. Everything that they say Charlie is, there's a group of people for each term that absolutely adore him and miss him. Why? That's what this video is about. This is exactly what Charlie always pushed me to do. And this is what I feel like is missing right now in this discourse about who this man is, especially from the left, the party of love, inclusivity, positivity, the list goes on. If that is the case, why are things like this being displayed? Why are things like this being promoted right now? Why are things like this being said? You don't see that type of behavior on the right. You don't. Hell, even the center, you don't. You just don't. Like, again, you're listening to a black gay man who used to be so far on the left crying in the streets. And now I'm more center right, admittedly, because of my own research that I've done. People think I grew up so privileged. I've been homeless before. I've been sent to conversion therapy. Like, there's so much to me and my story. So, like let's get any pre-notions about who I am and what I do. Get those out. Okay, this video is for the person that I once was, who was lost in this realm, in this mainstream media, in this news cycle, not knowing what to believe, where to go. That's when I make content like this. Again,
I mean, when I saw that video, obviously, I like how he opened up. He's gay black man who was inspired by Charlie Kirk. and he seems to have a very successful podcast, or at least a growing podcast. And yet he took the time to make an hour-long video, which we'll see some clips, debunking some of the myths that you and I don't see. Like, we don't believe these myths because we don't see it in Charlie Kirk's context. And so here you had a conservative, straight black man who was helped financially to go to the Black Leadership Summit. Then you see a gay black man singing Charlie Kirk's praises, or at least saying that Charlie's definitely not homophobic, transphobic, or racist. And, from what I've seen, that's a Charlie I've come to know. Your thoughts?
Yeah. The idea that he's homophobic, right? So here's what I'll say about that. Charlie Kirk obviously had lots of friends who were gay, right? Dave Rubin.
Yes.
With. But here's the thing. So I think his answer, I don't know if it's on one of the clips I gave, so I'll just say it.
Yeah.
One of the people that came to speak to him at one of his campus events was a white guy. He was a younger white guy. He came and said, he's like, listen, I'm a gay conservative.
Yes. And he said,
I welcome in the movement, whatever. And what Charlie said is, listen, I assume you want a secure border. You want lower taxes. You want gun rights. You want all these things. He's like, welcome to the movement. Of course you're going to be in the movement. He said, now I personally do not agree with that lifestyle. And I would say, basically you should surrender that to Christ and all that. But he's like, but at the end of the day, yes, you can be part of the movement, right? This is a political movement. And I think that's important. But I will say this.
Hold on, before you jump in, before you make that point, even in our own denomination, we don't believe in alcohol. And obviously we worship on the seventh-day Sabbath, like Charlie Kirk did coincidentally, and we'll talk on that. But we aligned with people of other denominations when it came to prohibition, right? So you don't have to agree on everything to align for a purpose. Charlie doesn't agree with, neither do we, with, gay marriage. However, that doesn't mean we can't love them and we can't be friends. We just disagree on something, and disagreement should not divide us, per se. Go ahead.
Yeah. To the hard left. So obviously the word homophobic, right? If you just take it literally, Charlie, us, right? The average Christian. I mean, obviously there's the, what was that Baptist church, Westboro Baptist Church, and they're nonsense. But for the most part, the average American Christian, we're not homophobic. We're not afraid of gay people. We have gay people in our lives, our families and friends, our communities, right? Businesses that we go to, whatever, right? Like, we engage with gay people. We're not afraid of them. But to the hard left, right? I would even say the totalitarian left, right? The left that is concerned with even what you think and believe and controlling and shaping that is homophobic to them. And that is one of the things that the center left, right, the reasonable liberals, right, they have to understand is that they can either unite around the principle of the free society, right, and religious freedom, or they can unite around this totalitarian left idea. But like, those two things can't. What can exist is a world where, yeah, maybe adults have broad freedom to do what they want in the privacy of their home, but religious people have the absolute right to believe what they believe, to teach what they believe, to, run businesses or schools or churches how our faith demands us to, right? Like, those things can exist in a pluralistic society, but the one idea that can't is the intolerant one, right? The idea that, if a Christian business owner, right, is going to live by his faith convictions and he's going to be ruined for it, that idea can't coexist, because Christians, we can't give up what the Bible teaches, right, and be faithful Christians. We can coexist with people who are willing to, allow us to live out our faith, but that's always going to be a conflict. And I think that's, it's one of those things that, we're not going to work it out in this podcast, but it's one of those things. Religious freedom has to be essential.
Yeah.
And
I want to play.
because legally we have the right, but culturally, right? If we're going to get to a place where we can talk to each other and have a sane political life, culturally, the left has to agree to put their guns down, rhetorically and literal, and actually uphold the free marketplace of ideas, because otherwise it's going to become tit for tat, and it's going to get bad.
Yeah, and we don't want it to get there. I want to play a couple of these clips from the first one's going to be on, the myth of the Second Amendment, and so, it's been cut by some people who disagree with Charlie in a manner that makes him sound cold about it. But I think his logic is sound, and so let's play that.
And discussed about Charlie Kirk, starting off with gun rights.
You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
And this is important because it's a clip that's kind of like a gotcha. Well, Charlie called for this. He asked for this. No, he did not. There's a strong difference between advocating for gun rights because you can protect yourself, but your personal safety, and also from a tyrannical government, versus the right for mentally ill people to commit political assassinations. There's a major difference, and obviously there's some context that goes into that. He's not advocating for political assassins to take place. He's not advocating for crazy people to go out there and be shooting people willy-nilly. No. He's acknowledging the fact that some shootings will happen, but we also can acknowledge that this assassination of Charlie Kirk is bigger than just a random shooting. That's not what this is. It was a planned and targeted attack. That's what that was. It was an attempt to silence this extremely growing faction of people that are going against mainstream media, speaking up for the truth and being loud about it. A movement that Charlie has been behind and is highly, highly responsible for. And all this did, honestly, was push forward his beliefs even more. Yes, unfortunately, bad people get a hold of guns and they do something horrible, but I'm not looking at that clip of Charlie Kirk and think, well, he clearly asked for it because, he's fine with citizens having guns. No, that's just not how that works. Empathy. Now, there's also...
Before we get on the empathy one, the bigger clip, I thought he showed it here, but the bigger clip of that is, freedom, true liberty, entails risk, right? In the bigger clip of that elsewhere, he talks about, there are 50,000 car deaths every year. If we want to eliminate, if you want to eliminate 50,000 car deaths, then that means no driving. Well, I saw a comment. Somebody said, well, just take the bus. No driving. So that means no Amazon delivery, no Kroger delivery, no driving in order to eliminate 50,000. Well, you're not going to do that. And even, I haven't seen anybody make this point, but I'll make it, right? Not even God micromanages everything. He allowed sufficient freedom, right? That sin arose in Lucifer. He didn't cut it down, right? Free society, and even in heaven, after sin and sinners are no more, we're still going to retain freedom. Granted, biblically speaking, iniquity will never rise again. Sin will never rear its ugly head again. But we don't lose freedoms because of it. And Charlie, even in his death, would not say, oh, now because I was killed, let's repeal the Second Amendment. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the counterfactual, right? Because the problem with these scenarios are, though, if we get rid of guns, we get rid of all gun deaths. And then they say, well, look at, Australia, the gun deaths went down. But the fact is, well, first of all, like, you're looking at gun deaths like, okay, mass shootings, right? And mass shootings are horrible. Assassinations, like what happened to Charlie. These are horrible things. But listen, the 20th century was not that long ago. And that's the counterfactual that matters, right? That governments that become authoritarian, that have pliant populations that they're able to disarm, have killed literally millions of people, of their own citizens, from the government. That's a form of gun violence too, and the state is always going to have weapons. But and people will make arguments. Well, it's like, oh, but small arms couldn't do anything against large governments with F-16s. First of all, because I think Joe Biden said that. First of all, the fact that the president of the United States
has even thought of that.
talking about F-16s against citizens is all the more reason why, like, we should support the idea of a Second Amendment. But secondly, as we're seeing tragically in Ukraine, that a smaller armed force, right? One of the things that actually happened in Ukraine is they mobilized every citizen, can hold off, at least for a long time, right? And do damage against a larger force, right? And so, because at the end of the day, right, a tyrant or whatever, or a ruling party, they want something to rule. So, like, the idea that they're just going to completely bomb what they want to rule off the face of the map, that doesn't really do them good. I mean, they could do that. I mean, and we'd have genocide. I mean, something like that could happen, I guess. But, like, that's like an unlikely scenario. But the fact is, armed resistance, right, guerrilla movements, like freedom movements, have moved governments. So, like, but the whole idea I want to get to is, like, the counterfactual that there's a scenario where there's no gun deaths. That's not the real world.
Yeah.
As long as human beings are running governments, there is the threat of government violence against the people.
Now, this was the first, the next clip is the first one that a friend of mine like posted on his Facebook page. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound like Charlie. And then I read then I saw the bigger context and I was like, come on, man, you're better than that. Let's go.
Charlie Kirk talking about his opinions on the word empathy, and let's just hear what he has to say.
The new communication strategy is not to do what Bill Clinton used to do, where he would say, I feel your pain. Instead, it is to say, you're actually not in pain. So let's just, very short clip. Bill Clinton in the 1990s, it was all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but it is very effective when it comes to politics. Sympathy I prefer more than empathy. That's a separate topic for a different time.
Important. At the end, he says, sympathy is what I prefer more than the word empathy, because he feels like empathy is a word that's being taken advantage of.
Yeah, and so, right, the short clip, right, he's not empathetic to anybody. No, he's sympathetic, which is different. And he talks about it in other clips where he actually cares for people, but he's talking about empathy in the context of that it's being misused as well. So you have to, at church, I do this sometimes. I ask people at church, right? So think about it. I'm setting them up, but I ask them, what does grace mean? And I write it on the board. And they give me all these theological responses. And then I say, no, I was thinking of Grace Kelly. Right? Because without context, doesn't mean, right? But because you're in church and I write the word grace, you think I'm thinking theological. But no, you need to see context. And so then people begin to understand that you can't do these proof texts, right? In scripture, you have to see the context of what the verse is saying. And so it's the same thing with this. You got to see he's not saying this, and I like how you said it earlier, in a vacuum.
Yeah. One thing that just came to my mind is, like, social media has trained us to be the soundbite generation.
Yes, and that stinks.
Ideas, generally speaking, can't really be fleshed out, and, like, you can't be a thoughtful person if all you think in is the algorithmic, 30-second sound bites, right? That's why long form conversations, like what we do on this show, what most importantly, to quote my friend Justin Stapley, more about Detroit, is like touch grass totalitarianism. That's the most important thing. Like the conversations that you have with your friend, in real life, right, at church, right, obviously we don't drink, but a lot of people in the culture, right, at bars or at restaurants or at coffee shops, like those conversations mean something, right? I think long form ones here too do. Like that's the better way to engage in content online, right? Because you can actually grasp ideas or grapple with them. But when you just take us like, okay, maybe there's some person who has some academic argument why he's wrong about empathy. Okay, have that argument, right? But don't engage in it in such a way where you take a little bit of his clip that makes him look the worst and then put that out there to say, see, and this is why he's wrong about empathy. No, be honest, have the whole clip, right? Then it actually says he's saying something more complex. He's not saying like don't
More
care about
nuanced,
people.
yeah. Yep.
So just be honest, right? That is the other thing. Honesty matters to debate.
All right, 3 more on this guy's clip, and then we'll move on to others.
Will be revealed. Gay people.
I'm a gay conservative, and I just want to ask you, what do you have to say for people like me who kind of feel like, I guess, it's kind of hard for gay conservatives because there's not a lot of us. So, like, what do you have to say to other gay people who need to realize, like, they do have a choice?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to the conservative movement. I don't think you should introduce yourself just based on your sexual
No, I
attractions.
agree.
Because that's not who you are.
I like to be thought of as a person. And
For sure. You are a complete human being, and I'm sure you treat people well, and you're studying something. So I want to get away with this idea that you're gay anything. I just think that we have gone a long way in the negative direction in this country, where we act as if the most important part of your identity is what you do in the bedroom. It doesn't mean that much to me, but if you ask from a perspective as a Christian, I don't agree with that lifestyle, but politics is about addition and multiplication. I imagine you agree with a lot of what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? Strong borders, strong country, and for that, we welcome you into the conservative movement.
thank you.
That's what they call homophobic. Oh, well, he's
Yeah, and that's the clip you were talking about earlier. And I like that because I don't go around, introducing myself to people. I'm Gio Marin, a heterosexual. You know what I mean? Like, just be you, right? What you do in your bedroom is up to you. Obviously, from a biblical perspective, I am 100% with Charlie. And I like that he does that. He never shies away from saying, the biblical worldview on that. And I agree with that. And that's why, I posted something on Facebook. Because part of and you saw it, part of what shook me this week, and it's because a lot of the things he advocates, and mind you, so I wouldn't say them the way he says it at times, because we're all our own individuals, but the values we share are the same. Biblical marriage, pro-life, right? A man cannot become a woman cannot become a man. And now, since that post that I posted on Facebook, I think it was yesterday, or Sunday, from yesterday to today, it's become even more clear that the shooter's ideology hated Charlie Kirk. And a matter of fact, there is a clip we're going to show from the FBI director saying, from their intelligence gathering in talking to, there was a written note that they were able to recover that says, I have a chance to take Charlie Kirk out because I hate him. Well, what did he hate about Charlie Kirk? If not the same values that I espouse. And him having a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and me having a 10, 7, and a 4-year-old. And knowing biblically that there's going to come a time where they are going to kill you thinking they're doing service to God. I couldn't help but see myself in that shoe. Know what I mean? And then on top of that, in front of his wife and kids, they were there. Well, when I speak from the pulpit, who is also there always? My wife and kids. Heaven forbid something should happen. And that's why I spoke to my wife and my daughters. I love that we treat them like little adults. Obviously, we couch the conversation in context that they will understand. But, I spoke to her about what happened to Charlie. I didn't show her the video, of course. But, that's the world I live. And so that really hit me. Because unlike some of my liberal colleagues, I preach the values of Charlie Kirk. And other, conservative colleagues of mine have said they felt the same emotion. That could be us, and it will be us, prophetically speaking, in the future. Your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think that's exactly right. Charlie was... So I was in a conversation. I think I was on a different side of this subject than I think I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're having a conversation, what was Charlie's martyrdom? Right? Because was he killed primarily for his political views and like for free speech? Was he a martyr for free speech? Or was he killed for it? Because like there's a difference obviously between being a Christian and being killed for your faith. But the more over the last few days I've been watching how often when he was engaging in these campus things that he was killed doing, including in that one, that he brought up the gospel, that he shared his faith, that he grounded his reason for being against, homosexuality or transgenderism. Yes, he talked about science, right? And like the natural law and like these things. He couched in the fact that he's a Christian. And so I think I've come around to the idea is Charlie Kirk was a Christian martyr. I didn't, like I said, I don't agree with him on everything, but like a large reason for why he held the values he did was because of his Christian faith. And those values are what got him killed. It wasn't just free speech. I mean, it was free speech, and he was a free speech martyr too. Yeah. But I do think there is a sense in which we can say Charlie Kirk was a Christian martyr.
Here's the next one on trans people.
And cool with lots of different gay people out there. It was not that big of a deal. Trans people.
I just want to say I'm a transgender male. What age should kids be able to get things like hormone therapy? Because I don't know what's true, what's not.
Tell me, are you comfortable telling me your story?
I've known that since like 3rd grade, and I'm currently 19, almost 20. I've known basically since then. I didn't start going by like a different name until 7th and 8th grade. I just don't know, like, with the whole medical stuff, like, what's true, what's not.
I'm gonna let this person finish, but Charlie gets called a transphobic bigot. The crowds get called transphobic bigots. There's a trans person that went through that crowd, is asking a question. No one's heckling them. No one's harassing them. No one's beating them. Charlie's sitting there being super respectful, hearing them out. That's all he ever did, was hear people out. Like, he wasn't this radical person that was very mean and rude on campuses. No. He could get stern with people. He was matching energy, that's for sure. He matched energy. But this is who we're talking about as someone super transphobic.
It's helpful because I've heard so many different opinions.
First of all, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to have an opinion that very few people will ever tell you, which is I want you to be very cautious putting drugs into your system in the pursuit of changing your body. I instead encourage you to work on what's going on in your brain first. I think what you need first and foremost is just a diagnosis. Just someone that is going to listen to what you've gone through, listen to what else is going on. My prayer for you, and again, very few people will say this, I actually want to see you be comfortable in how you were born.
Yeah.
I know that you might not feel that way, but I think that is something that you can achieve. I think that with the right team and the right people, you don't have to wage war on your body, you can learn to love your body.
That's the people. That's who someone that people are calling transphobic bigot. Someone like that in an interaction like that. Respectful, calm.
Yeah, and that is awesome. And matter of fact, let me jump back in because there's another clip here.
The hatred on trans people. It's really not that deep. Like, if someone wants to dress up however they want, that's totally fine.
Okay, so
and I think that's where the hatred comes
I'm not preventing you from dressing up like this. However, let me ask you a question. I will flush this out. So let's pretend you say you are a woman. I know you are a man, but I refuse to call you a woman.
Okay.
Who's the hateful one?
I would say you are. I mean, I wouldn't. So
you're going to force me and shame me. No, hold on a second. I'm the hateful one.
It's really just like common courtesy.
It is never common courtesy to lie. You do not become a thing just because you say it, you are the thing. And guess what? Nobody in the history of the species that was born XX or born XY and transitioned is able to change their chromosomes. Every one of your cells is coded either XX or XY. And it is an insult to women everywhere in this audience and across the country that's saying that you could just have wear makeup and dress like a woman, undergo surgery, that you magically become a woman. And it is the abolition of women and is the abolition of reality.
That it can be hard to hear for some people. I will acknowledge that. But that's not transphobic. That's just the truth. There's a reason trans people exist. You have male and you have female. If you're transitioning from male to female, you're attempting to mimic the other thing, right? You're transitioning from male to female. Clearly, what that means is you were never that thing. And you're never.
And I like how he points out, the one guy says, but it's courtesy. No, lying to somebody is not courtesy. And I think that's where people, and I could understand how a trans person will be angry at that. But like Paul says, have I now become your enemy for telling you the truth? I can't lie to them. And like Charlie pointed out, XY and, and XX. It is what it is. You can't change that. And I know. And so that's why, in these public debates, like Amir mentioned, he does match energy for energy, right? I would probably approach it different. The Bible talks about how a soft answer, calms wrath. But nevertheless, the answers are going to be the same. biblically speaking, it's not biblical. Thoughts?
Yeah, and to the match energy point, what I would say is, first of all, he never got violent with people.
Yeah.
What it would be, okay, so if someone would come and they're like, standing up, kind of shouting over him, he could project his voice as well as anyone, and he would do that. But I think I think that distinction of matching energy is important, and also I think it is really important. And it actually, if you want to go back to the empathy thing, well, it's actually kind of empathetic, right, or sympathetic, whatever we're the fact that when he senses someone's in pain, and I've seen countless videos.
Yes.
Somebody's in, whether it's, and they were far left, or it didn't matter. When he sent her in pain, right, he softened, right, and like he'd go, and like that is
like with that young lady, the first video, with the young lady who he told not to put drugs. And look, as he was saying that about the drugs, I'm thinking to myself, I like to lift weights. And I'm older. I'm 52 and I'm still building muscle, right? And people say it's hard and yada, yada. But people have asked me about steroids. And I'm like, yo, don't put that in your body. And that's quote unquote, not necessarily immoral in the sense, well, illegal steroids, yes. But I'm talking about like some people have asked me about TRT, which you can get from a doctor's prescription. Well, that's still not right if you don't need it, right? And so all he told her was, look, I'll be cautious about puberty blockers and hormone therapy and all that, because we know from the science it's not good for you. And I like how you pointed out, yes, he was totally soft with her and empathetic and actually caring for her while still holding up the biblical value.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, just one more clip from this guy on racism.
Racism.
You are here in the wealthiest country ever, at an amazing university, with all the opportunity imaginable in front of you. And all you want to do is look backwards at everything that prevented you, when you are a glaring example that there is no systemic racism and you can actually achieve your wildest dreams.
I never said that. Hey, I'm not the only black person who exists out there. There's so many people who this culture is affecting to this day.
Do you know black Americans are the richest black people on earth?
What's the
Africa?
Okay, I need you to pull that up right now.
You can. Black Americans per capita on average.
Can you pull that up?
I'm hosting an event right now. I don't know what to tell you. But anyone can fact check me on this. So you cannot find a black majority country, or any country where black people have significant representation, where they are as wealthy. Because even the poorest people in America are in the top 5%, the top 2% of wealth around the world. And so my whole belief is stop acting like you're a victim and start making better choices.
That's not racism. I am my ancestors' dream. I'm in the deep South, Tennessee. I don't know, 40, 60 feet, probably above tons of my ancestors that were slaves hundreds of years ago, living their dream right now. I am my grandfather's dream, who could not speak openly like this, who actually dealt with the Jim Crow laws, who actually dealt with real racism. I'm afforded every opportunity any white person is in this country right now. Are there economical differences? For sure. Are there some systemic things that we can get into? For sure. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't have it better than every other generation of black people that have come before me in this nation. I have it better. We all have it better. We genuinely do. I don't understand how people can sit here and call Charlie Kirk a racist when even back in 2018, 1920, hosted events like the Young Black Leadership Summit, where he would take 200 to 300 young black people all across the United States, invite them to DC, invite them to meet the president, invite them to the White House, invite them on this journey in this conference to learn more about the black history in this nation from other black people, to hear about stories that aren't taught in schools, to see a different side of our past as victors and not victims. Being a part of founding organizations like Blexit, where they are active in a ton of different states, in a ton of low-income black neighborhoods, giving young black kids mentors, school supplies, rides, field trips, events, block parties, that man. But people just want to say, oh, he was racist because he said this one thing. That's not how this works. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to say things. And also, you as a person watching this video, you're allowed to fact check everything for yourself. You're allowed to think deeper and think critical about the things that are being said. That's okay for you to do. And the things Charlie Kirk often talked about blew my mind, especially on the topic of race. Because as someone, again, who was in the streets marching with BLM, crying my eyes out because of the pain that I felt being a black man in America and a gay man, double marginalized, double victimized, and going to these events and meeting these people and talking to these people and realizing, wow, actually, I don't have it that bad. You could have told me 10,000 black people were being shot and killed by the police, unarmed. And most years, more people are being struck by lightning than black unarmed men are being shot by the cops. That man, Charlie Kirk, was not a racist man. Affirmative action.
You see a black person
And, hold on, let me stop it there. So here it is once again. He reaffirms, showed all those pictures of, Black Leadership Summit and all these black people praising Charlie Kirk. And on top of that, this young man, that's the last clip we'll watch of his, but this young man is a black gay guy who got his start by being inspired by Charlie Kirk. You can't tell me that Charlie Kirk is racist. I don't see it. Go ahead.
And I agree. And just to echo Charlie's point, that's not just, okay, yes, he's a white guy saying it, but that's what some of the greatest civil rights leaders said, right? Booker T. Washington, he wrote the book Up From Slavery, right? So Booker T. Washington lived in a time of slavery, right? Saw slavery abolished, right? And his message to black people in a time when there was still a lot of legal discrimination against black people, his message was, you have agency even now. Right? We can build our communities. We have our churches. We have our towns. We have our businesses, and we have our families. Right? Remember, the black community, right, was one of the most family-oriented communities in America. Right? Their divorce rate, right, their single parenthood rate was way lower than the national average for most of the nation's history before the Great Society, right? Because you had leaders like rightly, justly, for the abolition of things like what would become Jim Crow laws and the like. But at the same time, they were saying, take agency. And to Charlie's point, right, to Thomas Sowell's point, to so many of conservative black leaders' point, how much more, if that message, right, resonated, right, would that do for the black community today in achieving rights in a time when there's basically racist laws are no longer a thing, overtly racist laws, those are illegal now federally, right? And so in this time, those principles could do even more, right? Because again, until prior to 1964, right? This is when the Civil Rights Act was, and I think that was a good thing. But prior to that point, the economic statistics for African American families were only going in one direction, and it was up, right? Because again, two parents were in a home, all these things, and the 1964 bill could have been the turning point where even exponentially shot up, except for something else, something that came on the heels of that, right? I think the Civil Rights Act was good, but what came on the heels of that was Lyndon Baines Johnson, right? A Southern white guy, I will just add, a guy who actually did not have very favorable views of black people, but he started something called the Great Society, right? The war on poverty, right? That's where you see explosions of welfare programs. You see affirmative action and stuff come out of this, right? And this idea of we need to use the government to create equal outcomes and all these different things. Well, these ideas, what they did is they changed the incentive structure, right? So now the black church was no longer the locus of inner city communities and black communities. The state became the locus, right?
Yes.
Right. The black fathers being in the home became less necessary. And in some cases, welfare actually prioritizes black
Single
women
motherhood. Yeah.
in the home. And that has ruined it. So even though we've gone from 1964 to today, only getting better in terms of legal discrimination, right? It's only gotten less and less and less, to the point where that's not really an issue. Maybe marginally you could say, well, this law, maybe whatever. I'm not against that argument out of hand. But for the most part, any reasonable person would say America has, legally speaking, never been closer to a colorblind society. And yet, some of these problems are way worse. And the fact is, Charlie wasn't a racist, but he actually cared, right? I could list plenty of black people, right? But I don't think you need to do that. You don't have to be a certain race to have an opinion. But I could list plenty of black scholars, right? Thomas Sowell, Booker T. Washington, Shelby Steele, right? These people who
Ben Carson, Condoleezza Rice.
You tell people the truth. You actually try to help them, not, yeah.
All right, so this next clip is a little longer, but this is the one my friend Tony Taylor sent me. and he found issues with it, but I don't. So I want to get your opinion on it, right? It's nuance, and you can hear in Charlie's. Well, I'll let you say it. Let me put it up.
Reacting
I'm such
to
a troublemaker.
You are a troublemaker. Reacting to a June 2021 clip, but it was making the rounds on X, of the CEO of United Airlines, Scott Kirby, talking about their quotas over at United for diversity in the ranks of pilots, which is extremely controversial for obvious reasons. Here's the clip that you were reacting to in South 13.
Military. How is diversity targets working into the Aviative Academy? We have committed that 50% of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country. White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines. Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America. Correct me if I'm saying that. So this is just based off your website, people you list as executives, but out of 11 people, 3 are women. I believe 1 is a person of color. That's correct. But in corporate America, I think that's a low bar. How do you raise your own bar? Well, a lot of this is focusing on it. We have programs to. One of the things we do is for every job when we do an interview, we require women and people of color to be involved in the interview process.
Shut up! Oh, I'm sick of this nonsense.
It's so repulsive.
All right, so wait, let me finish it by your reaction to it. And people freaked out because you said the thing that you're not supposed to say, but that's what you're known for. Here he is in SOT 14 on Charlie Show.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
The meltdown after this with people like, oh, and the proper response was from you, from people.
Hold on. I want to pause it there, right? Because that immediate comment, he was like, when I see a black pilot, and then he says, that's not who I am, though. So once again, not talking about things in a vacuum. He's talking about the thought that's been implanted on him by the lowering of standards. Had DEI not been there, he would have just thought, that it's the most qualified pilot. And he reiterates that as the clip goes on.
Matt Walsh, this is the world you people have created. You have created this world where you make somebody's skin color the sole criterion for hiring, and then you react in horror when people wonder whether the qualifications are also there. The nerve to get so indignant about your reaction to that. This is their world. You're just living in it.
Yes, and I want to just reiterate the essence of that clip that was missed by almost everybody. Jordan Peterson, to his credit, really picked up on it, which is what I was trying to be, very vulnerable with the audience, is that DEI invites unwholesome thinking. And I said, I was saying in the clip, that's not who I am. That's not what I believe. But what it does is it makes us worse versions of ourselves, Megan. And that's the whole point of what I was saying, is that I now look at everything through a hyper-racialized diversity quota lens because of their massive insistence to try to hit these ridiculous racial hiring quotas. Of course, I believe anybody of any skin color can become a qualified pilot. That has never been my contention. I mean, it's silly. It's bigoted to think otherwise, right? What I was saying, though, is when you currently have less like 3 to 4% of current pilots are blacks right now, 3 to 4%. And now they want to say this is just a hiring class of candidates. Are there enough candidates to fill the 50% quota? And the other question should be asked is, why is it a problem? Let's just ask the premise. Why is it a problem that 81% are white? And I love the Axios guy. Well, white males are dominating the cockpit. Yeah, those pesky safe flights are dominating our society, Megan. all those 25 years of commercial airliners that have kept on, dominating as if like the white male is like oppressing us with, their beautiful landings through turbulence and storms. And I just as if it's some sort, like we have to, literally he said the Axios, well, white males dominate in the cockpit. Good, in the sense of like, it's been safe, it's worked. I don't care about the race. I literally don't care. But the premise is as if there's some sort of massive oppression enterprise going on. And so I want to make sure this is clear, because the deeper point even got cut off in that clip, that's fine, is that DEI creates like bad people. And that's, you're right. We walk around asking questions that we otherwise wouldn't ask. And I happen to say the quiet part out loud because I don't like thinking that way. I feel dirty. I feel like sinful. I feel that I'm now asking questions I wouldn't otherwise ask, but they've invited this entire conversation. And by the way, I just want to make this clear, because then some people say, but Charlie, they're totally qualified. Hold on. Every analysis that we have of similar quota-based affirmative action programs always results in the lowering of standards, whether it be Harvard, whether it be in federal hiring practices. At Harvard, admission standards were lowered 20 to 30% for black students versus Asian and white counterparts. So you can have one or the other. You can have excellence or you can have diversity. And I, for one, someone who has flown millions of miles and over 3,000 days of travel in the last decade, I want excellence in air travel. I don't care about the skin color of the person. Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry.
By the way, this is happening in medicine too, though.
This is
no,
happening
these
in
are not
medicine.
appropriate places for quotas or a hyper focus on diversity. They're just not. Like people have to have confidence that everybody gets into that cockpit or into that OR based on one thing, and that is merit. That's it. Like they deserve to be there. I want to end it with this. Eli Steele.
Well, we'll leave it there. But what do you think of that clip?
So Dr. King's famous speech, he said, I have a dream that one day my 2 little black babies will grow up in a country where they are judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin.
Amen.
Right? And some of these affirmative, like, I'm willing to admit maybe when they were started, there was good intentions. But
Mhm.
guess what? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And the fact is, Charlie's exactly right. When you have, by the way, I have heard like black students at Ivy League schools, right? Well, the one that comes to mind, there was an interview. So back, Stephen Crowder, back when I still watched him, in mid 2010 sometime, he was at Texas, at a university in Texas, and he's debating DUI. He did his affirmative action is racist, changed my mind, right?
Mhm.
And there's this young black woman who is at this school, and they were having this conversation. She was disagreeing. She was saying at various points, I am really grateful to be at this school and all this stuff. Well, Steven started asking some questions like, okay, what kind of grades did you get? Well, I was a 4.0 student. I had like a bunch of co-curriculars. I didn't, all these like marks of like excellence. And this is a young black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, and then he said, like, why are you so in favor of affirmative action? She said, because I don't know if I would have been able to earn this. Or like she said, like, I don't know if I'm here. Somehow in the conversation, it was a long time ago I saw it, but somewhere in the effect of it was, the summary is she said, I don't know that I would, if I'm here because of affirmative action or my merit. And Stephen looked at her and said, that's heartbreaking. He's like, because I just read your merit, like all those things you said, you 100% deserve to be here. You're a 4.0 student, you had extra, like, all these things. It's like, and you deserve to know that you're here because you're excellent, right? And so it's degrading to black people. It's degrading, to Hispanics. Like, now there's a case that can be made, right? If you want to have some class-based programs, right, that aren't race-based, right? So, for instance, college is expensive, right? So you want to have some program that helps, poor people, right, get in, but you make it class-based.
Yeah.
That's how you get rid of the problem.
Poor people, but poor people aren't just black, right? You got poor whites, poor Chinese, poor Hispanics, poor everybody. So if you want to help people like that get into Harvard, as long as they qualify, help them financially. And so, go ahead.
One thing I want to harp on, it shows the left's narrative is wrong, right? That it's culture, right? And in some cases, like, there are bad policies that have shaped the culture. Got to put that in there. But like that, it's culture, not race, right? Because you look at two communities that politically are opposite, racially they're generally opposite, but the problems and dysfunctions are basically mirror opposites of each other, right? It's like the rural, like white, like not the working class, but like the poor, right? Poverty in like Appalachia, places in the Midwest, right? Like this, I don't want to be stereotypical because everyone is a human created in the image like of God, and we only want the uplift of people. But we're talking about like realities here, right? Cultural realities. There is a problem with poverty among poor white people in rural areas, and there's a problem with poverty in poor black communities in the inner city. But the problem,
Hispanic communities. I grew up on welfare.
Hispanic communities, yeah, and like, what do these communities see? Well, in Appalachia, you see high drug addiction, violence, criminality, right? All these things. You see that there in these communities, and you see that in the inner cities, right? And so a logical person would then come to the conclusion, well, if we're going to have policies or things to address it, it would take the culture into effect, and it wouldn't look at this stupid heuristic of race.
Yeah, no. And I like on this clip how he said,
if you say that, somebody shoots you.
Yeah. No, well, I like how he said on this clip, I feel sinful having to, and basically what he's arguing, or not arguing, or the way I took it and the way he's stating it is like, he hates, like he ultimately doesn't believe that, right? but he hates that the temptation to believe that is cast upon us because of the lowering of standards. And I like how I listened to a Dr. Phil, and they were talking about DEI, and African American minister said, if something's gonna work, I forgot how he phrased it, but I'm paraphrasing. If something's going to work, speaking about DEI, then it should work everywhere, right? And he says, try that in the NFL and in the NBA, right? What would happen to the quality of the NFL and the NBA if you tried?
We have a case study.
And look, and it's not, he was, what happened? Oh.
The WNBA.
No.
Like, yes,
but
these women are excellent, but when you compare it, right, if you were to put those women, like if I were to go play basketball against these women, they'd kick my butt. I'm not a professional, whatever. But if you put the best WNBA star, and I don't know her name, and neither does anyone else, because women don't even watch the WNBA.
Actually, it's AJ Wilson, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you're a nerd. Okay. You took AJ Wilson and you put her against LeBron, or you put it no, that's not
even the worst guy in the bench.
The worst guy in the NBA, and you had them do one-on-one, you'd be stupid to put your money on AJ, because when you're talking about professionals, right, like the bell curve meme, right? Like, so yes, the best woman at something could certainly beat some like me, right? I don't play basketball or whatever. I'm out of shape. Like, sure, she could beat me, but like the best male in physical activities, right? Because women certainly have their things that they're better in, but so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Serena Williams one time said on one of these nighttime shows that she couldn't play in the men's tour. They'd beat her. You know what I mean? And this is Serena, considered the greatest tennis player ever. You know what I mean? Women's tennis player.
DEI that says we need equal representation in everything. Well, you're just ingratiating the WNBA into the NBA, right? You're, you got to take merit. Now, when it comes to merit, a black man and a white man, right? There's not that much difference, right? With the right education and the right, all these things. Both will flourish, right? And
well, I mean, look at Ben Carson, for crying out loud. He grew up with an illiterate mother in the streets of Baltimore, and he's a preeminent brain surgeon, literally brain surgeon, right? So, and I grew up on welfare in the South Bronx, and I'm not rich per se, but I have a 4-acre home. Well, not 4-acre. I have a property, 4 acres with a nice home, debt-free. You know what I mean? And so, so I think we spent some time, right, on debunking some of these myths, and even this one. I do want to talk about, though, the gospel and his faith a little bit. But before we transition there, I do want to show a video of, and I'm going to try to find it here, of the latest on the killer. And it was, let me find, oh yeah, here it is. It's a little long, but we'll play it. Go ahead.
Once that's over, I think there's a conversation that I think parents, Christian parents, but all parents need to have about this. But I'll get into that after.
Yeah. So let's show this video. This is the latest from Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. And he gives us some insights into the one who allegedly perpetrated this assassination.
He has not confessed to authorities. He is not cooperating. But all the people around him are cooperating. We can confirm that his roommate was indeed a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female, and that he is cooperating with authorities.
A Fox News alert. Charlie Kirk's murder suspect refusing to cooperate as the FBI discovers new details about his dark digital footprint before he makes his first court appearance tomorrow.
All right, FBI Director Kash Patel joins us now. I can't imagine, Mr. Director, how busy you've been, especially Charlie Kirk isn't just an impactful person. He's your friend. So I understand that. But having said that, people are looking to you to find out how big this investigation is going to be. Can you tell us the latest?
Absolutely, and so good to be with you. And you're right. My personal feelings and relationship with Charlie, I have a job to do for the American people, and I'm committed to do it for President Trump. We flexed all resources the FBI had and surged multiple air assets as soon as this shooting occurred. We were cycling in agents, evidence response technicians, hostage rescue technicians, and special operators in and out of Utah, cycling evidence back and forth on these FBI planes as soon as we could so that there was no delay. And what we did, once I got there, along with the deputy on the ground around 5 p.m. local on September 11th, was walk the entire crime scene, including the foots the suspect himself took. And what we learned was there was evidence, DNA evidence that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded, and the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. It's important. I'll get back to that later. I even walked into the wooded area in the ravine, so I knew from my investigative experience what I could bring to the table and what decisions I needed to make. And having the support of President Trump and the full support of the White House was what we needed for these resources to happen. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
So, Mr. Director, that is vital. That is breaking news and vital information because now you have the casings for the gun. So you connect the gun. Now you got his DNA on it. That's huge. But I also want to get to another part.
I just got to interrupt. Sorry, I just got to interrupt. We have the DNA on the screwdriver that was found on the rooftop and the towel that the firearm was wrapped in. The firearm itself, this is a great point. Thanks for raising it. That is being processed by ATF laboratories in Maryland, and I believe they'll speak to that at a later date when their process is incomplete. But I just want to let you know the FBI handled the screwdriver and the towel found.
That is important clarification, Mr. Director. I want to get to the 20 members in that group chat. Have they been brought in for questioning? And the group chat from our reporting that we're hearing is from after.
I want to pause it there because I've learned that you can't take a whole clip without interruptions and stuff. But he clearly mentioned they have DNA evidence to the person they have arrested. They're processing the gun, and that he had a transgender boyfriend. Know what I mean? It lets you know, it begins to fill in the puzzle as to the ideology. Here in a little bit, he's going to talk about a note and the message it had on it.
Assassination. Do you have the messages from before the assassination?
Well, let me take a step back and tell you what we were doing while we were there and how we were led to the suspect so that this all fits into the puzzle. We, as soon as we learned of the shooting, we were able to, I think Charlie Kirk was shot at 12:23 local time on September 10th. By 12:39 p.m. local time, FBI assets were on scene securing the scene. We then launched at 10 a.m. the next day the first images of the suspect. Myself and the deputy arrived at 5 p.m. local time on September 11th. And then what we did was decided to have a press conference at 8 p.m. local where we issued for the first time FBI obtained video footage that we seized from the security camera surveillance system and new images, enhanced images. I decided to release immediately to the public because we were working with the public and the media to find this killer. Shortly after that 8 p.m. release, at 10 p.m. local time, the suspect was in custody. Why? Because the father informed us, pursuant to an interview with him, that he looked at the video that we released that evening and the enhanced photos and identified the suspect. That's how fast the FBI was working to put out information in real time. And for comparative sake, the Boston bombing, the FBI didn't release images for 3 days. We know we didn't have 3 days. I made an executive decision on investigative and operational need, and it turned out to be the right move because the men and women of the FBI said that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, we knew when that video was released. We said it here on Fox and Friends. Someone's going to recognize this person because someone was friends with him, his family. Someone knows this guy. Those images were crystal clear. Tell us what you know about his background, his childhood, his father who had to turn him in.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore the last question. Going back to the group chats real quick, there's more than 20 individuals. But this is a great point. I want to lay out how this works. People think we can just get in these group chats and immediately find out who's in them. We, the FBI, are the investigatory body supporting multiple prosecutions and ongoing investigations. And that's another point. Our investigation at the FBI is ongoing. And there are scores of people in this Discord chat room. But we have to effectuate legal process. We have to go out there with search warrants so that if prosecutors want to later use this evidence, it's not tainted by being illegally obtained. We, the FBI, are running the investigation pointedly on the Discord chat group. There are scores of individuals that are going to be spoken to. There are also lots of family members and friends that have already been spoken to. And one more point on forensics. We were able to obtain, in record time, the text message chain between the suspect and his live-in partner, as well as other critical cellular information from our CAS team that analyzes cell phone data towers in the area to pinpoint the locations of the suspect and other individuals he was speaking with.
I like how he pointed out that, they're making sure they're doing this legally, like getting the search warrants and everything in order to build the case. And the video of him jumping from the building, they enhanced it because at the beginning, man, it was real grainy and people were trying to say, hey, he doesn't have the rifle with him as he jumps. How could it be in the woods? But there you clearly saw he had a package. Obviously, it was wrapped up in that towel they spoke about. Let's keep going.
Critical information that the FBI processed and got to prosecutors so they can lawfully use it in a court of law. And our investigation, our interviews continue, but we learned some shocking things when we spoke to his family and friends as well.
You want to share them? Those shocking things?
Sure. And my job as FBI director is not to speak to motive, is to speak to the facts. And that's what I'm going to do. His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, he the suspect, with another individual in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions. But I believe in this instance of such public importance, the public has a right to know. And I've told you I'm committed to transparency, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Why didn't that person that he was talking to, why didn't that person say something?
Right? Text message exchange that he hated Charlie Kirk and what he stood for. Well, you and I, even though we may not articulate it the same way. No, you're not frozen. Even though you and I will not articulate it the same way, right? Because we're our own personalities. We hold the same values. It's no wonder I thought about, man, could that be me one day? And obviously, you know, that was at the moment. I don't think that's going to happen to me. But hey, you never know. Let me keep going here because I want to finish this clip.
Our investigation is ongoing. That's a great question, and we don't have an answer on that just yet.
But Mr. Director, you're right. Your job is not to speak to ideology, but you do have the BAU, the Behavior Analysis Unit, that are there. And my sources, people that are within the Bureau and outside that used to be FBI, tell me that the BAU has been encouraged not to tackle the transgender issue from an ideology standpoint. Have you heard that? Are you tackling that? I know you've only been there recently, but you can't have a political slant saying we're not going to attack different political ideologies because it's going to offend someone.
You're absolutely right, and that's why me and the deputy have been quarterbacking this investigation ourselves. There's no one at the FBI that's going to politicize this investigation. There's no one at Quantico or anywhere else that's going to say we are not looking at X or Y. We are looking at the facts, and that's why we are releasing the facts in record fashion. If you go back and look at historical cases like Luigi Mangione and the Boston bombing, how long did it take the Bureau to release information to the public? We're not doing that. Those two manhunts took 5 days, and they happened in downtown major metropolises. We apprehended our suspect in 33 hours because we were transparent and open with the American public, and we're going to continue to do that. So anyone that thinks that the FBI is not on top of its game, and that me and the deputy and everybody in leadership in our Salt Lake City field office in Quantico is doing anything politically, I'm not having it. And if you've heard anything else about it, they are lying to you. We're on it.
That's why it's so important that you came on. We're thrilled you are. A couple other things. I have two quick questions. One, is it true what the governor said yesterday that he had a written note that you're looking into now prior to the assassination? Did he have a note? And the other one question is, the person that was texting with him about I have a shot at taking out Charlie Kirk, can that person be charged?
So I'll take those in reverse. The charging decisions are up to our great partners at the Department of Justice and the Attorney General, who have been wonderful providing resources during this entire process, and we'll let them speak to any charging decisions. But we, the FBI, are investigating. As I said, our investigation is ongoing. We're interviewing dozens and dozens of suspects, subjects, witnesses, and the like, and continuing to examine forensic information, including cell phone data and DNA analyses. And once we make those findings handed over to our partners, as we're doing in real time, they'll make those decisions. And I'm sorry, Brian, I forgot your other
question. You had a written note. Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say? If you
what I'm able to say. I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is, I addressed it partially earlier, is that the written note we believe what did exist, and we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying, the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
So, Mr. Director, I'm curious, and there has been some criticism, so I appreciate you coming on our program and discussing with our...
I don't know if you want to finish it. There is like 3.5 minutes left, but I like how he pointed out there was a note. It was before the shooting, and it said, I have a chance to take Charlie Kirk out. That speaks to motive to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really that. I mean, I'm not. I figured it was a leftist. I mean, there was some chatter like, oh, maybe it was a groiper because the groipers also have, but like that never really made sense to me. Right?
Nope.
Like, don't get me wrong. I do
wouldn't put it past that. Yeah.
But the groipers' violence generally, even though they've protested Charlie because they don't like that he's gatekept them and that he won't join them, that they broke it. But like the violence they do is typically it's going to be against somebody on the left. Like yes, they don't like people. Like, maybe groiper violence if it was like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Right. I would believe that, but it didn't really. I thought. I mean. Obviously, when we didn't know anything, I didn't rule it out, and like I was like, okay, whatever with the facts. But it doesn't surprise me in some of the left wing. But what I think parents should know, and I'm gonna clip this part of our conversation because I want to get your thoughts too. But like, I want this to get out there, this conversation. Names every parent, every Christian parent, especially, but every parent of children needs to know: Discord, Reddit.
Yes. Oh, now you froze, buddy. Okay.
Message boards, 4chan. These communities, a lot of young people are on, and they are cesspools of radicalization, right? We've talked a lot about like the dangers of social media as a society and even as a church, but it's all true things, right? Like it's how, Instagram negatively affects the mental health of young girls, right? And like, or Facebook, right? Boomers getting
adultery.
Confused titles or whatever, right? Like we've talked about those things, and those things are true. Those are real problems. But like the stuff, but I'm 28 years old, right? I'm closer to the age of the people who are generally using it. I have some people my age, but like I grew up in an age where it's like you could have an optional childhood, right? My childhood was somewhat unplugged, right? But like I was today years old when I found out that there's something called, and I don't even remember the name of it, but it's the Brawny community, right? And it's a community of adults, many of them young men, some of them women, I'm sure, but most of them young men, that are into My Little Pony. And there's conventions for the Brawny community, right? And that's a one realm of the Reddit. I don't even know what the Reddit things are called, but that's one realm of Reddit. I mean, there's a lot of the trans stuff is message board stuff. I know Chloe Cole in her testimony, transitioner, she's become a Christian, but she very much message board, Reddit, got her into that community, got those thoughts planted, got a community of like people around it. I mean, white supremacy, right on the right side, like the Groypers, that came out of that, right? But left wing, right wing, a lot of the radicalism we're seeing among young people is festering in these things. And so it is crucial that parents actually have this conversation in a way that I don't think has happened. I mean, there may be people who have done it, but like a broad society-wide, thing, right? Like,
yeah, maybe churches should make maybe churches should. Let me jump in here. Maybe churches should. Are we on a delay here or something? Maybe churches should make a PSA about Reddit and Discord and stuff. I'm on Discord actually. It's hilarious. Some friends just made a Discord, but we talk about just life in general. Let me finish this video, and it's only like less than 3 minutes, and I have it on 1.5 speed.
So you weren't getting some information, you requested photos, and you were being stonewalled. And I think it's important to know there's always some sort of tension between local cops on the ground and the feds. They want to handle their own investigation. But of course, with an investigation of this magnitude, you have to step in, you have the resources. But can you explain, was it the local field office, was it the state police? What was going on?
So the local authorities have been fantastic. The local sheriff, the state PD have been wonderful. And any investigation, as you hinted to, of this magnitude has so many people in it because I've made the decision to search so many resources. And to get the information up to me was of the utmost priority. So I worked with my team to say, hey, there's not going to be any delays. We're not going to do it the way we normally do things. So the only thing that people were doing at the FBI was how they knew how to do things. I had to expedite that process. That's my job. That's what I thought this case deserved. And that's what this case was rightly calling for. So I made the tough calls. But I wasn't critical of anyone in particular. I just said, we got to move faster. And that was my call to make. If there's any criticism there, you can put it right
who
here.
Who wasn't giving you information, Director? Who wasn't giving you the photos when you requested them quickly and it didn't make it to you? Who denied that order?
It's not a denial of the order. Just to clarify, I'm glad we're talking about this. The photos were produced. They just weren't produced in a timely fashion that I felt was appropriate for an investigation of this magnitude. So I came in and I accelerated that process.
So in the 24 hours after, when we were still looking for the guy, I know you posted that we got him. And that ended up not being true. You took some incoming because of that. What led to you posting that? Why did you feel so certain about it? And what do you have to say about the criticism?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. Look, as I stated, I was being transparent with working with the public on our findings as I had them. I stated in that message that we had a subject and that we were going to interview him, and we did, and he was released. The job of the FBI is not just to manhunt the actual suspect who did the killing or suspects, but it's also to eliminate targets and eliminate subjects who are not involved in the process, and that's what we were doing. Could I have worded it a little better in the heat of the moment? Sure. But do I regret putting it out? Absolutely not. I was telling the world what the FBI was doing as we were doing, and I'm continuing to do that, and I challenge anyone out there to find a director that has been more transparent and more willing to work the media on high-profile cases or any case the FBI is handling than we have been.
And just do you think that guy was part of the plot to distract you while this guy got away? Do you think there's any connection between two of those people that stood up and acted crazy at that moment?
Well, as it's now been publicly reported, some of these people were taking claims for this horrific act of violence and they had nothing to do with it. Others were working what we call a daisy chain analyses, and this is where the cell phone data dumps are so important. We're seeing who talked to who, not just in chat groups. We're seeing who texted who was around who. We're using our geofencing capabilities to map out exactly where individuals were, and then we're also getting into their personal cell phone information, say, were you calling so-and-so, were you texting so-and-so? And we know the suspect was communicating with folks, but as I've said, that cell phone tower information, you got to get it the right way, with search warrants, with lawful authority, so that our prosecutors can use it in court for whatever investigations they decide to prosecute.
Cash, he's not saying a word, he's not admitting it. Is he remorseful? And what happens to him? Does he get the death penalty?
Well, I'll let the state authority speak to their prosecution, which is ongoing. As I think your summary is correct. Based on my information that I have, he has not been cooperating in terms of interrogations with our law enforcement officials.
And Mr. Director, we always appreciate it because every time there's silence, that's where the conspiracy theories pop up. Yeah. So we appreciate you coming out with us today and just telling people what you know. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Ducey.
That is good, man. I like what he said, that they're releasing their information as soon as possible, and away we go. I also like the fact that they are, they're making sure all the different law enforcements are communicating, and he kind of took charge of it, because sometimes they can bungle these investigations. And look, I think it's pretty clear. It was leftist ideology. He's dating a trans woman, and I'm talking about ideology. It's not right, the ideology, and if it leads to violence, makes it even less right. And so that's the latest on the ongoing investigation. Any thoughts on that as we begin to wrap up talking about the gospel and the Sabbath and Charlie Kirk?
Well, I guess leading into that, and why I think why I think it's safe to say that Charlie would approve of this. I'm just going to be honest. I see that guy's face, and I have anger. I have, I would even say element like at my worst moments, hatred. But But as Christians and as believers, as people who believe in the same gospel that Charlie preached so often and the same Jesus that he did, I do think we have an obligation to pray for Tyler Robinson, that he would confess, repent. Because here's the thing. When, and we won't get into this because this isn't a Bible study on the state of the dead, but we don't believe that Charlie's in heaven. We believe that he's asleep, that he will be resurrected when Jesus calls him out of his grave at the resurrection. But as I imagine that day, I don't think anything. Obviously, Charlie doesn't know who killed him. Didn't know who killed him. But when he gets to, if he gets to heaven, and there's this young guy, Tyler Robinson, and he finds out the story of what happened, but Tyler Robinson is there, Charlie's going to embrace him as a brother. Right? So, yes, you have anger. That's not like, if those that are watching that are fans of Charlie Kirk. Yes, you have anger. That's normal, right? That's human. That's born out of your love and your appreciation for Charlie, but also out of respect for the gospel that Charlie preached, right? Even though it's hard, pray for Tyler Robinson. Obviously, pray for his family. I mean, I think that's easier, right? They seem the family.
Hey, the father turned him in. That's spiritual guts.
Yeah. So pray for the family, but pray for Tyler Robinson. Pray for the people in your life that are celebrating, the people all over social media that are celebrating, because that's just some spiritual darkness even in them. But we should want every one of them saved. And yes, even including Tyler Robinson. Now, I want to be clear, salvation, repentance, praying for him does not negate the necessity and the justice of lawful prosecution and lawful punishment. But so that all should still happen. We support that. But we should definitely pray for his soul.
Amen for that. And, going to what you just said, ultimately, and I remember, and not ironically, but I now live here in Oklahoma City. My church is in Oklahoma City. I live in Piedmont. But when McVeigh, right, exploded that bomb, I remember something Bush said that was so profound. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, like when he was executed, today we serve earthly justice on the man found guilty for this crime. But ultimately, his fate lies in the hands of God, meaning like God has the ultimate say. Like, because somebody said, what if you got the wrong guy? I think it was an answer to that, right? Ultimately, God will, if McVeigh for some reason was innocent, God is going to rectify that. And so here with this young man, I would love nothing but for him to surrender his life and become truly converted. That doesn't negate the fact that he may have to pay with his life if the state should find him guilty and pronounce the death penalty. But ultimately, I preach a sermon titled Whatever It Takes. And let's say for some crazy reason, this is what it took for him to finally wake up and surrender to Christ. Like dying in the death penalty. Then Christ died for the least of us, of which we are. As we transition here, because we've gone longer than I... Go ahead.
There's a saying, hanging concentrates the mind.
Mm-hmm. So I want to point out to this, and I ordered mine, view pre-order. This is Charlie Kirk's book, comes out December 9th on the Sabbath. And I like the title, Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life. And as you and I have noticed in our own lives as Seventh-day Sabbath keepers, it is a transformational aspect that the world. And so many of us who are Seventh-day Adventists need to read the book. I bought it for two reasons. Mainly because I want to read the book because people are going to be asking questions. And I want to be able to say I read the book and answer it for them. but secondly, I bought it because, you know, his wife and children lost the breadwinner. And if this can somehow support her, Erica, and the babies, so be it. I want to show a video of Charlie, talking about the Sabbath.
Is one of my favorite topics to talk about, honestly, because I'm so sick of talking about politics all day long. That's all I do. So it drives me crazy. This is actually way more important than that, and I could tie the two together if necessary, but we don't have to. It's more important than that. I grew up in a Presbyterian background. We left that church. We went to what we best called as a Bible-believing evangelical church. So not quite Calvinist, not Pentecostal, somewhere in the middle. Look, we believe many of the same stuff, guys. I believe in the inerrancy of Scripture. I believe you need Jesus Christ. I believe in grace, not works. I believe that there's heaven awaiting us. I believe in an afterlife. I believe in a God that created the heavens and the earth. However, I grew up in a church environment that at the very best would de-emphasize the Shabbat. At the very worst, say that the Sabbath doesn't really matter. The Sabbath is in your heart. You don't need to observe it. Yeah. And the story is quite long. I'm actually writing my next book on the Sabbath. It's called Stop in the Name of God, because Shabbat means stop or ceasing. So I'm not here to sell you a book. It's not even for sale yet. It's just something to think about. And it's honestly how the Sabbath saved my life and helped preserve my family and helped preserve my career. And so two things. Number one, a pastor that I really care about, Pastor David Engelhardt. He's one of our board members at Turning Point USA. I was exhausted. It was the summer of 2021. I sat down with him. I said, I'm not sleeping well. I'm fatigued. And he asked me very bluntly, are you honoring the Sabbath? And I gave him very weak theological arguments, honestly. Oh, I'm not bound to that. Or no, I'm not really interested in that. I don't have to do that. And he really challenged me. And I didn't have good responses, to be perfectly honest with you. And pairing that with my very good friend, who is Jewish, who right now is going through a very difficult health trial, Dennis Prager, who I believe is the premier Torah teacher of this generation. He's amazing. He's a phenomenal mind. And if you don't know Dennis Prager, on the Sabbath, you guys would really appreciate Dennis Prager because he has brought the teachings of the Sabbath to more millions of people than almost anybody alive, and I hope to carry that tradition. And he would always talk about the Shabbat, always talking about the Sabbath. And I found myself, after a couple of years of hearing this, getting really jealous of him. Being like, wait a second, you're able to just unplug for one day and not work and be with friends and family and worship God? I want that. And I would start to get really jealous in the worst possible way. And then I realized it's not something you go and purchase at the store. It's not something that you have to take out a loan for. It's simply the prioritization of the question of who's in charge. It's that simple. And if you believe God is in charge, and if you believe Genesis 1:1, because the Shabbat is a question of whether or not you believe Genesis 1:1, and if you believe Genesis 1:1, then you honor the Sabbath. If you have questions about Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, which is Bereshit, right? It's the first truth claim of the scriptures. Then on the seventh day you rest because God created the heavens and the earth. It is the longest standing celebration of time of the creation of the heavens and the earth. And so that realization changed my life. I could talk about this from many different dimensions, what it's meant to me personally, what it means on the macro. I also go to churches across the country. I speak at hundreds of churches of all different denominations, and I will challenge the Christian church because I believe this is the most ignored commandment of the Decalogue to our own detriment. And I will go a step further, and then I'll stop talking because I know we have a whole program, which is that I believe that honoring the Sabbath is the commandment that allows you to honor the other 9 commandments, and that the enemy has gone after the honoring the Sabbath because then it is easier to weaken the other 9. And I'll prove it to you. If you're honoring the Sabbath, it's definitionally easier to honor your mother and father because you're not working that day and you're with family. If you're honoring the Sabbath, it's easier not to covet your neighbor's wife because you're not around your neighbor's wife, you're with your family. And you're filled with gratitude that day. When you're honoring the Sabbath, it's easier to have no other gods before God because that day is built in time as a temple, as a sanctuary to put God first, to not have idols, to not take the Lord's name in vain. The other 9 commandments are made easier, or made more accessible for our broken, fleshly, depraved nature if we prioritize the Shabbat.
Amen.
That is awesome, dude. I hadn't seen that one. That's a good one. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on it.
So that was a wisdom pearl. The guy who was interviewing him was a Seventh-day Adventist. Wisdom Pearl started out as an Adventist platform. They're more ecumenical now, but there's still a lot of Adventists associated with it. But one thing from that clip that I would want to point out to people, and first of all, I'm fascinated to how deep he goes in this book. But just from what he said there, I wanted to make a point, right? He ties it to Genesis 1:1 and the reality of it. And he ties the Sabbath right to these things. Right? If you believe Genesis 1:1, right? Because ultimately the Sabbath is about creation. And the people who say that the Sabbath doesn't matter, or that it can be Sunday, or whatever, that it was changed, they don't get that disconnect, right? Because and then there's some that say, well, the Sabbath was changed, but it is still binding, and it's binding on Sunday. Well, you missed the entire purpose of the Sabbath. The Sabbath was not the Sabbath of the Jews, because the Sabbath predated the Jewish people, and it was a reminder of creation, right? Creation is a reminder. And when we go to Revelation 14, and it's going to the 3 angels' messages, right? What does it say? Right? It says, fear, no, I'm not going to get the wording right. I should.
Fear God.
Yeah, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of judgment is coming. He who created, but it's basically he who
worship him
earth,
who
right?
created the heavens and the earth and the seas and all things in them. For the hour of his judgment has come. Yeah.
Yeah. It ties it to creation. The Sabbath is tied to creation. And in the end times, right, Revelation 14 is talking about the last messages. Revelation 14 is the last 3 messages to go to the world, right? And at the heart of those messages is fearing God and giving worship to God as our creator. And ultimately, right, and we've done other episodes on this. We recommend people go watch them, study the Bible for yourselves. But ultimately, the final conflict in this earth's history, and we do believe Jesus is coming soon, is going to come down to worship, and is going to come down to what God says. Now, I believe that there are Christians across denominations who are worshiping God, on Sunday, and they're doing it out of the best intentions, and God does not look badly upon our ignorance, right? When we're sincerely following Him. But I think Charlie Kirk, frankly, was being used by God to bring this message into the forefront, and I believe it's going to become more prominent. But people should really study this out. Read this book of Charlie's. Look at how honoring the Sabbath, the seventh-day Sabbath, changed his life, and give it a try.
Amen for that. Let's play another clip of his.
Right there. Is that okay? Hi, what's your name?
My name is Carissa. Charlie and Erica, thank you for saying yes and being obedient to what God has for you, and it's really shaped my life and everyone else here. I would love to know your thoughts on Sabbath and how practically your family practices this and applies it.
I will let him talk, but as the wife, I will say I have seen it transform. I love my husband, and he's amazing and an intentional father and husband, but him honoring the Sabbath, I have seen it transform him in a way that is so powerful that when he turns his phone off and it goes in that drawer, and I know that it's, he's all on for the family. There is no distractions, and he finally gets to reset his brain. He finally gets to breathe. And as a wife, there is nothing more precious than my husband's sanity when it comes to the echo chamber and everything that he's dealing with in his world. So I have seen it change him and impact our family in one of the most beautiful ways. But I want him to.
Well, thank you.
Share.
And we're very serious Sabbath keepers. This would be an exception because we're here with all of you, but we'll do it on Sunday. We actually take the traditional Jewish Sabbath. If you don't want to do that, I'm not here to debate you on it. It's fine. If you want to do it privately, I'll beat you, but that's a whole separate issue. But it's fine. It actually doesn't matter that much. What does matter is I think that to our own detriment and to our own failure, we as Christians have decided to cast away resting on one of the 7 days. God rested after creation. That comes before the Hebrews. It comes even before the creation of the modern world and civilization as we know it. And so we honor the Sabbath. We're very serious about it. We get to spend more time with our family. We do no news. We do no work. And it says very, very clearly in the scriptures, for 6 days you shall work, and the seventh day you shall rest. If you are feeling overrun by society, you might be feeling depressed or anxious, here's just one way that you might be able to improve. Turn your phone off for 1 day. No contact, no social media, no work. Your mental health will improve dramatically. You can hang out with friends, you can go for a walk, but don't work for 1 day. That is a day for worship. That is a day for the Lord. That is a day to go be with God. That is a day to read your Bible and be out of the busyness and the hurriedness and the anger and the noise of this world. Go back to God's natural rhythm, and it's made our family much tighter knit. And I could be traveling for 5 or 6 days, but if I at least get one good Sabbath with my family, it charges all back up. So God bless you. Thank you so much. And Shabbat Shalom tonight.
I like to say that God, the Sabbath, well, I like to say a lot of things, but one, the Sabbath is a reminder that we belong to God twice, by creation and by redemption. The redeeming part is when you read the Ten Commandments in Deuteronomy chapter 5, is he couches it, because you were slaves in Egypt. I redeemed you, therefore keep the Sabbath. And then I like to say from the practical standpoint, I spend it with God, family, friends, nature, his creation, and acts of service, if I can, right? And I unplug from the day-to-day. I worship my God. I preach the gospel, because during the week I have to deal with a lot of administrative stuff. Well, that's all in the back burner, and I am dedicating that day from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. I spend the day with my Lord and Savior in a special way. Obviously, we worship God every day of the week, but ultimately we are to
Serious
spend
Sabbath
it
keepers.
with him
We-
always.
This would be an exception because we're
Give me
here
a
with all of
second.
you, but we'll do it on Sunday.
And so we spend it with him, or I spend it with him intimately and with my family. Joey, you there? What you looking
Yeah,
at?
I'm still there. I was looking for a post about
Mhm.
something, a conversation that one of the Wisdom Pearl people had with him. And I can't remember where I saw it.
Well, we're gonna
but-
have to wrap up here.
So there's one of those other Sabbath clips, one where he mentions Adventists. If you could
Mhm.
find that one, and then I'll while that's playing, I'll try to find this. But if I don't, I'll
Okay,
summarize
I
it.
think it's this one. Yeah, give me a second. Oh mercy! You stuck me one with a commercial, dude. Well, anytime you send stuff from Facebook, it's annoying.
Oh,
Yeah, so
You stuck me with something from Facebook. You're killing me, kid.
Oh, it didn't go through.
No, it didn't go through. Hold on, let's see.
Let me see. Oh, here it is.
It says the video you tried to open is not available.
Really?
Yeah. Try to find it on.
Oh, I found it, but maybe so. It's the It was posted by a group called Adventist Message on Facebook.
Yeah, well, you're killing me. Killing me.
Okay.
Find it on
It's
YouTube
not
or
very
something. I know it's a real.
All right, one sec. They'll be
Oh,
able to
hold
hear
on.
it at least.
Yeah.
Oh wait, is it?
And it is an argument that in this hyper-materialistic, very fast, digitally frenzied world, that there is this gift that I believe the Lord gave the Hebrews that we have decided to just gloss over. And it's very simple. It's that for those of you that are agnostic or not Christian, I still encourage you to do this. People that honor the Sabbath live longer. We know this with the Seventh-day Adventists. They actually are happier. They have better health outcomes. Everything about disconnecting from modernity is good for you. It is inarguable. Like this is a material fact. But why is that we have forgotten it? Well, for me personally, I work like crazy for 6 days. On Friday night, even Sunday morning, I turn my phone off and I try to stop. I try to make it distinct. I try to make it different. It's where I do my best thinking. It's where I do my best time with my family. And again, this kind of goes back to, okay, we're trying to we're gonna have this vaccine, all this.
Oh, you're killing me
Honestly,
there.
it's cyanide that we shouldn't forget. It's so funny. I keep getting the same question.
Okay.
Do you guys coordinate?
Hi, brother. Your last thoughts as we wrap up.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a manifesto.
Mhm.
The Charlie Kirk manifesto, right? Don't, first of all, what is done when there's an act of political violence? What is being done, right? It's an effort to shut up a message. It's a message to cower the next person from speaking up boldly about these beliefs. So what I would say to people who share our views and Charlie's views on the issues that we've talked about today, have more conversations. Be civil, right? Be kind, right? Like engage people who disagree with you, but speak up more, right? Right? Do what Charlie did. And none of us, Charlie's irreplaceable, right? As everyone is. But really, and just in what he did, he was remarkable. But the more of us, right? When there's more, right? When more of us speak up, right? We can carry on what Charlie did, right? Live your life in a way, right? Like Charlie did, right? Focus on your family, focus on church, right? Keep the Sabbath, right? Proclaim God's truth, right? And don't back down. Let his legacy be that, right? And don't listen, right? I would say this, right? Get offline, right? Have some, to quote my friend Justin Stanley, have some self-imposed touch grass totalitarianism, right? If you have kids, I'm not going to say, right, in 100% of situations, don't give your kids technology, but I will say this. It is, I do not think it is a stretch to say that iPhones and social media and these things for kids, particularly under 16, it is worse. It is doing more damage to them than giving them a beer a week would do to them. And I don't think you should give your kids beer. I don't think you should drink beer.
Yeah, we don't drink alcohol.
Let them smoke a cigarette a day. And I'm saying these because everyone will instantly recoil, because the danger to their physical health from these things are real, and we know it's real, right? But yet people won't think twice about, the kids being hours a day on social media or these devices. Like, these devices have more of an ability to destroy your children than moderate use of alcohol and tobacco. I'm going to say that. And again, I don't think you should do either, but this just shows how seriously this technological stuff has harmed younger generations.
And I'll end with this, with an appeal I made to my church. I mean, coincidentally, or maybe providentially, we were preaching on baptism, on Romans chapter 6, about dying with Christ and resurrecting with him. And I opened up with the question, are you ready to die? Because none of us are promised tomorrow. The young girl in Charlotte, minding her own business. Charlie on Wednesday. On Thursday, the remembrance of 9/11. Those people that morning had no idea it was going to be their last day. And the only way to be prepared to die is to have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. To accept him, to recognize your shortcomings. Because without him, there is no eternal life. And Charlie trusted in him, and God is going to resurrect him when he comes back in glory. And those of you who consider him a friend or a fan, if you ever want to see him again, then you have to surrender your life to Jesus Christ as Charlie did. So I leave you with the question and the video we opened up with today. Are you ready to die? May God bless you on the Gio and Joey Show.
How do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if I die?
Everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
I don't know if you know this, but everyone dies. It's important to remind yourself of that. That you face God, the judge, and he's going to list everything you did wrong in your life. It's going to be a long sentencing hearing for me. Well, you get justice, which is hell, because that's what we deserve. Mercy, which is less of that, which I'll allow the theologians figure out what that is. Or grace. What is grace? Grace is something so unique, so different, so profound. Which is, as soon as the sentencing's about to be ushered in, someone comes in and says, no, I will serve that prison sentence for him. I will go into the prison cell for him or her so that they can live forever. That's grace. You didn't earn it. You didn't check boxes for it. You didn't go park cars for a ministry and that gets you extra points to go to heaven. None of that's true. It's that it's equally accepted for all people that allow Jesus Christ to be your Savior, the Savior of the world, to be born new and to be completely and totally renewed. That's a gift that we must try to give all people in the world.
I mean, I've had an unbelievably blessed life. Been doing this now, it'll be 12 years on June 5th.
Such a young man to do it.
So young.
Yeah, so praise God. I mean, I've been all across the world. I've met with world leaders. I've flown in Air Force One, got to know a president. I have an amazing family, the podcast, Turning Point USA, all that stuff. And so you experience that and you're like, what actually matters? What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth. And you could decide to lie all the time, then you become a tortured individual. And you know those people, you just turn on television. they're constantly lying and they just become like disfigured either emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Because when you lie, I believe you're actually committing suicide of the soul. I really believe that.
Are you a Christian by any chance?
Very, very much so.
Like, why is that exactly?
Jesus saved my life. I'm a sinner, gave my life to Christ, most important decision I ever made.
So you believe the Bible is real?
Yes, I believe the Bible is true and real. Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I could give you the technical answer. There's never been an archaeological discovery that has contradicted the truth of the Bible. And then, of course, the wisdom. There is not a truth of the Bible that if you apply to your life does not improve dramatically. And then finally, we have the most accurate and transparent, historically robust account that one can have of the most important figure ever to live in the history of the world, Jesus of Nazareth. And the resurrection is the pinpoint of my belief that Jesus did rise from the grave so that we may live.
And for those of you that have not given your life to Christ, I could tell you it is the most freeing, liberating thing that a human being can possibly do. The most important thing that you can do, which is to be born new into the kingdom of God.
How do you want to be remembered?